It's member-supported Hawaii Public Radio and All Things Considered. I'm Dave Lawrence. Really exciting because over the last few days, Living Colour has been in town. They are through tonight at the Blue Note. New album is Shade. It's due in September, and it's been due for a while. So if you're a fan of this band, you've been saying to yourself, I'm hoping September works out. I got the go-to guy to find out about that and everything Living Colour. It's Vernon Reid, guitar player, songwriter, founder of the band. Thank you so much for taking some time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're quite welcome. And I guess the logical question for all Living Colour heads would be Shade. When's it coming out?
It's coming out in the fall. I was slated for early September. And I think we're going to hold to it. It's been a long, strange trip to get it done.
And what informs, that's a great way of describing it, very Grateful Dead-esque way of describing it. What informs making it that? Is it you're redoing a song, you're not happy with an arrangement, you think you can do it better? Is it different kinds of material you want it to all be encapsulated with?
I think it's all of the above. I mean, we started out with the inspiration of playing Robert Johnson Centennial, and that was a number of years ago at the Apollo when we played a version of the Preachin' Blues, and the idea was, this is something about the blues and hard rock and metal, that there's a relationship that's kind of been a little disconnected. And so it was funny to have that kind of narrative inform what the band is doing with this record, but not to make a blues rock record. We did not want to make that. But we, so it's been funny. Also, we worked with Andre Betts, who's more our producer for the record, and he's more associated with hip hop. So we did a version of Biggie Smalls' "Who Shot Ya?" And the thing about the blues aspect of a song like "Who Shot Ya" is, number one, Corey doesn't rap the song, he sings it. And the impulse to record the song was that Corey, when we would do sound checks, he would just launch into the rhyme for "Who Shot You." And when we were thinking about material to do, both material we were writing and other things, I said, well, you always are doing that, so you dig it, and why don't we do it because you love it? And the blues aspect of it came about thinking about the song "Who Shot You," which is kind of very snarky, and it's really kind of directed at Tupac Shakur, because Tupac had been shot and wounded before he was shot and killed. And it's arguable to say that the song "Who Shot Ya" really started the beef between the two of them. And ultimately it culminated in the murder of Christopher Wallace by gun violence. So there's a kind of embedded irony in an unintended kind of irony in us doing the song, because he asked a question, and that question is still extant because we don't really know for certain who shot Biggie. So that's the sort of thing that all along inside of the songs, like we have a song called "Two Sides," and George Clinton actually is a guest on the song. It's very cool. He's just kind of does his kind of Phantom of the Opera voiceover on top of my guitar solo, but it's pretty cool. But there's a line in the song that I think is so applicable, that Corey sings, and it's nostalgia for things that never happened. And this was done long before there was this kind of "Make America Great Again" campaign, And it's funny how the things, the narrative of the blues, the narrative of the African American experience filtered through rock, metal, blues, whatever. It's weird how it, part of the "Make America Great Again" is like, exactly when are you talking about that? Like
which era?
which era? And in what way? How do we fit into your idea of greatness? When
we're stealing the land from the natives, or when we're hauling people over in ships. Which part of that?
When is that? When? Like which one? And it's arguable that people go on the side of, America is already great. Other people say, well, America's never been great. America has always had great potential. America has always had great ideals. And the challenge is America prepared to live up to those ideals? In every era of the country's history, that's been the ultimate question, because the ideals are noble. The ideas, the pursuit of happiness and liberty and those things. But, the difference is they were intended for one set of people, but they put such a grand design out into the world, and people were cognizant this is their story, and this is the immigrants come to become part of this grand story. So that's part of the impulse, what it is to live in the now. And this was, this song was written these songs were written while Obama was president, but still, the song called Who's That we're going to play, which is really about people facing financial hard times. And that, any president you like, there are always a strata of people that are worried about the knock on the door. And I think that didn't change under Obama. That didn't change. It wouldn't have changed under Hillary Clinton, and it's definitely not going to change under Donald.
May not change under anyone.
You know what I'm saying? And but that's the thing. So a lot of the conversation. One aspect of Living Colour's music is we would do things without thinking about a temporal thing, like a song like Time's Up. I thought it was very unusual when Corey came with the lyrics, and the lyrics were about the environment, and that the song Time's Up from the album Time's Up is more relevant now than when it was written.
That's totally. That's so funny that you. And another thing that connects that album to this one, that just by your conversation, is that album you had some really massive guests on too. And I know George is a whole different thing, and I love George a lot. But Little Richard, hello.
Yeah, that was it was pretty unbelievable. It was pretty unbelievable to have Little Richard come in and just kind of do the rhyme on Elvis's dad, and it was very.
Take us into it. Give us a story. Like, how did you even get the idea, or do you remember him coming in? I mean, talk about a character.
Well, we used to play at various clubs in Los Angeles, and at one time there was a Hyatt. There was an infamous hotel, the Hyatt on Sunset, which was nicknamed the Riot House.
Yeah, the Zeppelin era, right?
Oh my goodness! And Richard Penniman, aka Little Richard, had a suite, and he lived in the Hyatt Hotel, and we were summoned. We literally were staying there to play a show, and we got this call from that Mr. Penniman wants to see all of you, and it was pretty wild, He wanted to see Corey, and Corey said, "I'm not going into that room by myself." So we went up, and it was very, very. It was rather solemn. He was very serious, and he was like, "So I see what you boys are doing, and I want to tell you I believe in what y'all are doing, and y'all are keeping." I'm one of the people that started this thing, and y'all are
keeping the flame.
And it was a remark. Talk about a benediction. It was pretty
unbelievable.
Yeah, I walked out of that room. We all walked out of the room pretty much dazed, and that's one of the things that stays with me. Forever. And there've been many encounters with people and wonderful artists, and
Dial forward to the George, because I guess it's important to. So when did he arrive into your life, and then how do you end up? You can give some more plugs for the record too.
Well, George is, crucial. My very first concert I ever attended was Funkadelic, and they were touring on. Oh my God, I'm that old. They were touring on Cosmic Slop.
Oh no.
And it was incredible because
Gary Scheider, come on.
Scheider, yeah, man, the whole crew. I mean, Eddie Hazel. I mean, and it was I mean, Glenn Goins. I mean, it was a pretty outrageous assemblage of musicians. And I remember one thing. I remember that George had a mohawk. He had a mohawk. And he was running around the stage like a madman. And later, it would be a few years later that I would see the mohawk really come into vogue with the punk movement. But that was a pretty
preceding the whole fashionability of it is what you're trying to
say. Yeah. And Doug Wimbish, you know, he was with the Sugar Hill Gang, and the Sugar Hill Gang, they were on tour with them. I think they actually opened for them for the Mothership tour. I mean, they opened for them, and so you know, so the connection to George is. I actually interviewed George one time for Vibe magazine, as a kind of artist journalist thing, and so the connection to George is very. He's, you know, there are a number.
It's family-esque.
It really is. I mean, there are a number of people who kind of defined. You've gotten to know people that defined what rock is. I mean, Mick Jagger spent a lot of time in a band with Jack, in playing with Jack Bruce. You know, I've played, you know, with my mentor Carlos Santana. It's been a very. It's been a weird experience. It's been a weird experience as a fan because I'm a fan of music, and that's how and their pivotal songs, like "Sunshine of Your Love." Like I was a little kid, but that riff just leaped out of the radio.
Take me to that. That's one of the things that was really important to me. It's like, because when I was in high school, my senior year, Cult of Personality, it's a revolutionary kind of moment on the radio. So when you're talking about hearing Sunshine, you're a kid, paint the picture of how you got exposed to this stuff that would, all these years later, this passion for loud, distorted guitar is still so much a part of your life.
You know, it's funny. You know, it just seemed like radio was massive. You know, radio... Because, I mean, there were so few, everything was shrouded in mystery, and things would happen, and you weren't exactly sure why they happened, but a song would come on the radio. We didn't know the process by which, right now, you know, now everybody knows about everything. They know about payola, they know about blah, 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 they know about playlists, they know about all this stuff. When I was a kid, it was like, when I was a really little kid, I thought the actual band was at the radio station playing the song. I said, why are they playing? Wow, they must be really tired. You know, they're playing that song again. They play it exactly the same way every time, you know. But it was a magical process. And to hear something that you never heard before, an expression that we were all focused on a few outlets, a few ways of experiencing this music that was going to change who we were. I mean, for the Doors to play on Ed Sullivan, or for the Stones to play on Ed Sullivan. Or
there were few channels to get to it, is what you're pointing at.
It's like the Beatles kind of set the tone, because I mean, you know, he had, you know, Ed Sullivan was impresario. You know, he came out of New York, he had this variety show. I mean, he had guys that spun plates. Like it was like a really it was a stand-up comic, have a magician. I remember he had a pickpocket one time. This is great. He had a pickpocket, and the pickpocket came, and I remember that the pickpocket went through the audience. And Ed Sullivan introduced him, and he just came down. He was shaking everybody. He said, "Hey man, how you doing? How you doing?" And he got to the stage, and he had people's watches. He had people's watches and wallets, and it was the most incredible. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? And he came, and by the time he just walked through the aisle, and he had a whole bunch of people's stuff. It was completely crazy. And from that, and then the Beatles, and the whole nature of what entertainment was. I mean, it was guys in tuxedos, who were very formal, and then these kids from Liverpool came, And then this wild man from Seattle with a guitar came, and then all these people showed up. You know what I mean? And then this group of people who even know who they were. It was a black guy playing keyboard. He sometimes played guitar, and he had a white guy playing drums, and a woman on trumpet, and it was Sly and the Family Stone. And Family Affair just rocked on. Family Affair was like I never heard anything like it. Like Family Affair, the thing about pop music is that we were always Monday morning quarterbacking it. Like we're always, that was blah blah blah. But when things came out that you'd never heard before, like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, or any of Prince's singles, you know what I mean? I Want to Be Your Lover. Like nobody had heard anyone say I want to be your mother and your sister too. I mean, that was the thing that would happen. A song would come out and someone would say something or play something and everything would be different.
They were each pioneering moments that would change everything that we come after.
It's like the sound of the guitar at the beginning of Black Hole Sun. That there's something magical about recording something that has a character, that has a thing that you just wow, or the elemental riff, like the riff to I'm spacing right now on the song.
A Soundgarden riff?
No. I'm thinking about Smoke on the Water. Okay. Right, Smoke on the Water is like by Deep Purple. It's like an elemental. It's like it's like
Iron Man.
It's like a riff that always existed, and it was just uncovered. You know what I mean? They had the same quality as Sunshine of Love by Cream, and had this thing. Wow, it's like a riff you've never heard of before, but it's obvious. It's totally obvious after you hear it, and that's the thing on pop. It's totally obvious afterwards. Like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, a little crazy harpsichord creepiness.
Becomes the foundation to so many degrees.
Yeah, but nobody heard like anything like Stevie Wonder's living for the City. Like a song breaks down and there's a skit, there's like a play in the middle of the song. It was unheard of.
All the dialogue between the characters.
It was unheard of. The cash register at the beginning of Money. Yeah, you know what I mean? How they got away with saying bullshit. I'm not going to get away with saying bullshit. But how do we got, because nobody knew the accent. So when he goes, do goody good, and he says the word, and it came on the radio, and because people kind of like, they couldn't decipher the English accent. Somehow, before the censors got to it, I remember hearing it without it being beeped. So there were all these things that were possible. It was an art of possibility. And all these different styles. To me, all of it just affected me, and so the other thing too is that it wasn't defined for me as white or black music. My parents didn't define things that way, and it's partly because they're Caribbean immigrants, and they were taking in America. And they weren't judging what America was. They didn't have that. That wasn't their history.
Right. It wasn't a black American culture, multiple generations. You were seeing it from a complete outside way.
Yeah. So it wasn't like. So hearing the Dave Clark Five, my mother was a fan of the Dave Clark Five and the British Invasion bands. So hearing that, it was just music. But I was also like, anytime James Brown made a move, I had to go to the record store and get the single. Right. So James Brown and all of these different things, Al Green and James Brown, but the Stones and all these different people just were part of the landscape.
Who made you want to get the guitar?
Carlos Santana, Black Magic Woman, Gypsy Queen. Because he sounded really vocal. And the funny thing about it is, he has said that he really is a big fan of Dionne Warwick, and Dionne Warwick is a vocalist that affected me a great deal. And he said at one point, I wanted my guitar to sound like Dionne Warwick's voice, and his guitar playing seemed incredibly vocal to me. So it was very interesting that Dionne Warwick is also one of my favorite vocalists.
And very emotional too, huh? He can just make you cry with a couple of notes.
Yeah, man. And actually, I heard Carlos first, and then, because I was too young for the Woodstock scenario or whatever. But I heard Carlos first, and then somebody said, "Oh man, you like Carlos? You have to hear this record." It was the Band of Gypsies record. And so, my discovery of Hendrix sent me backwards into what he did. But it was astounding to me. Like Machine Gun was just a shattering experience.
What's kind of cool is you mentioned Sly, and what a huge thing that was in the United States demographically to have the multiracial, multi-gender kind of thing. And we just lost him this past weekend. A humongous force and a band that similarly had you had black dudes and white dudes together, and eventually even Hispanic dudes in the modern day version of the Almonds. I'm thinking of Greg.
Yeah, man. That is a tremendous, we lost, I'll tell you, Greg Allman and Chris Cornell. To me, Greg had been struggling for a long time health-wise. But something like Whipping Post, a song like Whipping Post, it was a revolutionary thing. I mean, because just saying Whipping Post acknowledges slavery in a very direct kind of way, in a way that was really not done by American bands. And just the makeup of the band, the musicianship, and they forged the path. They forged the path. And and then Little Feat and all the other bands that came. I mean, the whole Southern rock thing, doesn't happen without the Allman.
And Elizabeth Reed, dude, that version of that on the Fillmore. Come on now, as a guitar player, listen to Dwayne on that thing.
The memory of Mary Elizabeth Reed is funny because that's actually my mother's name. Well, the Reed spelled differently, but yeah. And my mother's still in Brooklyn. Yay.
God bless her. Final question before we go. Toki, anything about these concerts that you want to put out there? I mean, you and I were talking earlier today about what a cool diversity that the Blue Note is offering with all these bands, and you were saying they may not do it again after this show.
Well, we are who we are. There's. It's gonna be heavy. It's gonna be. It is. It's. We do what we do, but I'm looking forward to it. We
You don't modulate the intensity at all for a venue like this.
No, we it's so funny because we've done acoustic shows in our time. This was not going to be one of them. So but certainly like what jazz and rock and the places where they all just kind of merge or collide into each other. That to me is really some of the most interesting space for music. So there's there are these histories that are that have been in conflict, but then eventually, of course,
they are in concert.
Yeah, they have to which is what happens in America.
Having a lot of fun today. It was. Did you have fun? I really enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed talking to you too. I just bounced from
groove to groove. It was a lot of fun. It's Vernon Reid. It's Living Colour at the Blue Note, and making Hawaii history in a lot of ways by playing at a venue like this, but just being a part of the show here on ATC with me. I really appreciate it and had a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. And this is my first time in Hawaii, so this is just very special. Very special. I walked by this banyan tree, and that's a wow, man. I don't even know what to think looking at the banyan. It's so creepy and awesome. It's so beautiful. It's
nature at work, brother.
So beautiful, weirdly beautiful. It's this kind of weird beauty that I love. So that's great.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.